Hello there. So we look at the last verse of Matthew 16 and bring that into the event that happens in chapter 17, because chapter divisions, again, were man-made. They weren't put in there until years later. So the mountain of Jesus' transformation or transfiguration is recounted in the Gospels, mentioned by the Apostle Peter in his letter in 2 Peter, as a moment when the disciples saw the excellence of Jesus shining before them. Jesus had taken his inner circle of disciples up to the mountain to pray. There we see him transformed in full glory. Now Peter, impulsive Peter, immediately says, we're going to make shelters for you, because that's what you did in the Jewish community, or probably would do anywhere anyway. Let's make a tent, inferring that this probably took place during the Feast of Booths, because he was going to make booths for them. That was when the Jewish nation would set up tents that would help them remember their wilderness wanderings, the events that occurred between Moses and Joshua. Now, Moses and Elijah appear with Jesus at the time, kind of a staff meeting, who knows, talking about the end times of Revelation, when he would come again. Because I believe Moses and Elijah are the two witnesses in the book of Revelation. One thing I always thought interesting was that Peter did not have to introduce them or be introduced by them. He already knew who they were. So in heaven, we may just immediately know who everyone is. Moses himself represents the law, while Elijah is one of the great prophets. So in a way, we have Moses, who had died, and Elijah, who had been taken from the earth. So there is a very interesting picture there. But we also know that Moses could not come into the promised land because of the law. But here he is, standing with Jesus. Through grace, he was in the promised land. Imagine being in the glory and presence of the Lord like Peter and the other disciples. I don't think we could imagine that light and that power. I know we couldn't, for it's too much for words. Jesus tells the disciples to tell no one until after he's resurrected. Peter declares the event to the world as an eyewitness of the truth, of a sign of God's glory. It's not just some made-up story, it's a reality. All of the stories in the Bible are not myths, they're not made-up legends. Otherwise, public school education wouldn't have a problem teaching them, would they? Obviously not. These are real events, real stories that show evidence of a real, living, true God, the only true and living God. And he loves you, and he has a plan for your life. Keep studying, my friend. God bless.